One thing that I realized as a business owner is the more you move forward, the more you know, and then the more you realize, the more you didn't know. And so, you two gentlemen, I'm just extremely fortunate to be sitting here with the both of you because you guys have acquired so much knowledge, have also gained a huge network and insight to something people are really not aware of, but we'll talk about that more in a little bit. First, I like to dive into your world and how you guys came out to be the co founders of ITA Global.
Go ahead and
Well, it's a long story because it's been over a decade. But interestingly enough, it all started with going to Nicaragua. I took a trip to Nicaragua. I needed to go on a quick, almost like a getaway, right, with the family. But that's where I've never been so much of a childlike, moment when I discovered the opportunities a country could offer. And it was interesting, David, because at that point, when my family would say, what are you doing in Nicaragua? All I could see was opportunity. And I said, this is almost like the land of opportunity. So I came back and I told Chris, bro, we gotta go. We go to Nicaragua and then we connected on a level, we connected with some of our associates and then we're talking about investment projects and mining projects. So all of a sudden we needed to create a company, right? That's how it was, right, Chris? We needed to create that company.
yeah, because there wasn't any safe way for us to get people out there. It was the Wild West. Things weren't developed, and the opportunities were abundant. It just wasn't accessible for most people. So we tried to make it more connectable and tangible for people, and give them a vehicle so that they could go out and explore these opportunities.
So, Santiago goes to Panama, Nicaragua, on a family vacation. You see business opportunities. Chris. Chris, what industry were you currently in when Santiago brought this idea to
We were in technology. I was in technology for several years, maybe 10 plus years. And then this was sort of a wild card that came out of nowhere. Tourism wasn't the angle, it wasn't the idea, but because of investments and different things like that, it was necessary. So, when you see a niche and a void, you step there and you fulfill it. So that's what we did.
And then during that time, Nicaragua was going through the evolution, right? The growth of tourism. And we didn't know that though. And being from Nicaragua though, we just, like I said, we saw the opportunity so big. It seemed so clear to us. Most people just couldn't see it, but we just saw it so big. And then we just went guns blazing. We went all out, massive action. It was almost, like they say, ignorance on fire. Mm-hmm. But we had experience in sales. We had experience with customers, customer service. We had experience with a lot of that. So that made an easy transition for us. But then we brought that knowledge into the tourism space. We came from a very different angle than most people in tourism. But because we came with the investment eye, with the investor's point of view, in a sense. And that's how we just, started developing the whole journey. And, we're here,
Just as pan back just a little bit. So when did you guys get started officially with this? It started off, you said, as a destination agency?
Yeah, so we started as a tour operator in 2011, November 2011. Started as a tour operator, right? And it was the funniest thing because that was never the intent. And then, we went from bringing investors into Nicaragua, and then we started the evolution of tourism. At the same time, it was happening back to back. We're going way back before when Airbnb was still maybe a concept, or maybe it was very new. I don't remember exactly, but we were utilizing some of the friends that had beautiful beach houses. We would use it, and then they thought we were crazy. Why do these guys are crazy? They want to rent the house to bring some gringos down. Literally, that's what they would say, right? And then we would just come in, we would bring all the staff and create the whole experience for people.
Okay. So you guys are launching, right? You guys are reaching out to individuals, businesses, and corporations. And so you got the ball rolling, and you've been doing it for over a decade. What happens to a business after a decade when going through so many growing pains? Can you guys touch on that?
Well, growing pains are inevitable. So in the beginning, it can be the end of your start for many people, and that's unfortunate. But if you can withstand it and stomach it and understand that it's part of the journey and part of the process, you go through a cycle of almost education and then you start learning, and then that helps to keep you a little bit motivated and going. The education, you feel like you're gaining from it, you're becoming a better person in life. It really helps you kind of hit the gas on self-development, personal growth, and then you start to see obstacles and challenges differently. Your perspective changes. Things that used to be a big deal are less of a deal. You start to be able to identify solutions to problems quicker. You're able to pull in resources that you've accumulated with time and experience, and that allows you to address, obstacles, challenges, issues from a different point of view, sometimes faster. But there's a never-ending cycle of things that are always thrown at you, obstacles that you always have to jump over and dodge. I don't think that ever goes away. It's really just about becoming more aware of how to handle everything. And the more you take on, the more crazy it gets. And a lot of people don't realize how much of that happens, because usually it's behind closed doors. People try and shield it and not let anyone know about it. But the reality is that it's always there. It never goes away.
Something that's always been there and we've been oblivious to it, and you guys are about to bring something really big to the light. And I'm getting more excited as we're having this conversation, because I know we're gradually getting there, but I do want the backstory to take place first so that people can understand the foundation and how you guys actually acquire this knowledge and are about to provide an opportunity that I think is going to be changing, like life-changing, right? So, okay, 10 years into the business, character development, growing the business, and everything's going into place, right? You guys have staff, you guys are doing a lot more trips, a lot more tours. What happens after?
Well, actually, let me just go back a little bit. So, the transition was, we went to Panama. So from Nicaragua in 2018, we went to Panama. Panama brought a completely different animal in a very good way, right? We just saw a different world, different opportunities, different connections. So Panama is, it's a very modern city. So Panama took us at a very different level immediately. And ironically, when that happened, that was in 2018. Then we left Nicaragua, started in Panama, and then we had the pandemic. So when the pandemic happened, is actually where a lot of the magic happened, believe it or not. But we came to the point that I almost had the last phone call with Chris. Bro, it's been a pleasure. What an amazing experience. That's the end of it. The world has officially stopped. And that's what we thought. Bro, it's done. And then as I'm sitting at my desk, that exactly that went through my head. The world has officially stopped. That means that all the competitors have stopped. That means that, oh my God, Chris, bro, this is an opportunity for us to actually make something out of it. This is an opportunity, right? And at that moment, very, very low overhead. We had very low overhead. But we had a worldwide, pretty much a world that wasn't traveling, but we knew people would travel again. And that's really when we had to reinvent our point of view. That's when we transitioned into becoming a DMC, a destination management company. And that's when we understood that the experience from Nicaragua and Panama, we understood that we could create an itinerary, the ITA way, anywhere in the world. Why? Because I started connecting with people in France, there's people in Egypt, people in Italy, and everybody during that pandemic was very open. Why? Because everybody was trying to figure it out. So together we realized, oh my God, we can actually do this anywhere in the world. And that's how we started evolving, into what eventually became more of what we're doing now.
Got it. So because of the pandemic, like you said, everyone had to hit the reset button. The field got, how can I say this? No one was at a huge advantage anymore. Everyone was at the starting point, the starting line. And you guys gathered your peoples, you guys started brainstorming. After the pandemic, please tell me how you guys started pivoting into not just your standard, destination company, but you guys started doing something differently, yes?
Yes.
Can you elaborate on that?
So what happened, so 2020 gave us a clean slate. Okay, we have the world is wide open. We are a destination management company. And we talked to the team, hey guys, we have so many months and we need to figure it out. So we had to figure it out. But we have all this knowledge and experience, but we just apply what we knew in a small scale, and we just applied it at a bigger scale. And then we realized that the world is a lot smaller than we thought. In our world of travel, very, very, if you think about it, how many people are in the world, the amount of people in travel is very, very small. And there are some big companies, in the playing field, but we got connected with all these companies and all these networks during the pandemic. So all of a sudden it became just like, wow, this is crazy. It just gave us almost a peace of mind, because you see the world as very intimidating. And that's when we realized that it wasn't for what we do.
When you guys were huddling and trying to fix, strategize on the game plan during downtime, what was the biggest problem you guys were trying to solve as a company?
Well, at that moment, the biggest problem was, well, how do we? No, actually, what happened is, how do we get people motivated to travel again? That was the people. Everybody in their minds like, I'm not gonna travel again.
Yes.
But then we realized that when life is short, we gotta travel more, and that's how we developed that slogan on that moment during that pandemic. Yeah.
Because a lot of folks didn't make it, right? Some folks unfortunately passed away, and people got to grasp how short life is. Travel more.
Yeah.
All right, so keep going, guys. I'm just listening to the story.
So that's how we developed the Life is Short, Travel More, and then just started calling everybody, hey, we're ready to travel in 2021. Eventually we just gave people hope that don't worry about it, we'll eventually travel again. We've always been really connected to our customers. So at that moment, just making that transition, it was easy, just calling everybody that had booked trips. In 2020, we just moved them ahead, and nobody really canceled. Everybody said, oh, fine, don't worry about it. We understand what's going on. It's like people just understood, right?
All right. And so you guys made it. You guys are, to this day, you guys are thriving, right?
Yes.
So at this point, you and Chris, are you guys still heavily involved in the aspect of traveling within the business? Or are you, Chris, branching out to do something else as far as management goes or visionary world goes?
So now we're even though we still travel a lot, traveling is fun, but when we're always traveling for business, it's like a workation, right? We're always working a lot. When you're there, you have to be with the A game. But now we're transitioning back, pulling back a little bit more, and now the next step is to utilize people that can do exactly what we do now without us. And we have been able to connect with specific countries and teams that can do it the ITA way without us being there now.
I give you guys a lot of credit and recognition because you guys started a business and went international with it.
Mm-hmm.
And that speaks volumes of what hoops you guys had to go through, right? All right, so keep going.
When you say that, David, we don't even know why. Fearless. Honestly, it's just fearless. There's so many things you have to do business internationally. Just from banking, and you have to establish a company in a different country, all these different things in a company here. So we learned a lot. But one of the biggest things as an entrepreneur, you just gotta hit the books, you gotta find the articles, you gotta find the resources, and you become extremely resourceful. You self-educate, you spend hours self-educating. If you don't know a subject, you go find the answer for it. You call somebody that you know, and that's really, how things have definitely evolved. Yeah.
Sweet. Okay. Chris, where are we here today? Bring us into the information you guys shared with me off camera, because I want to see how things transitioned into this new concept that's a proven concept, because this is it. Like, I'm very, very, very amazed of what you guys presented, and I'm really going to dive into the details today. In fact, it's going to feel like an interrogation because I want to know more and more. I come from a world where you have to work so hard for your dollar, and then it's like you have a savings account. Should you have your money in a savings? What is it really doing in a savings? Okay, should I invest it? I've never had a family member who's a millionaire. How do I invest money? Who do I go to? There's so many options, right? And I feel like you guys have remedied that by making it really simple and providing an asset that I want you guys to expand on and talk about.
Yeah, go ahead.
Well, like Santiago was saying, we utilized a global downturn as sort of our catapult, and it not only shot us to another level in the business, but it expanded our network globally. We had already started to dabble with a couple of new countries. We had spent a lot of time working with the team so we could maintain quality control and just assure that the operation was the way that we needed to do it. And as our network continued to grow and grow and grow with more and more people internationally, each country we went to, we just kept getting more and more contacts farther and farther away. So it's been incredible to see how something that we thought was just about one country turned into a region turned into overseas, and now is literally touching all corners of the globe. So we're proud to be able to offer such a great network of trips, places people can travel to. We can create an experience around the destination they want to have, the experience they want to have, and that's not only attractive to friends, family, private groups, retreats. It's also attractive to corporate America. And corporate America sees it as an opportunity to spend intimate time with their people, get a better culture going on, let people be a little bit more happy, connected, better team building, better synergy, corporate synergy. And so the corporate world is starting to pay attention to some of the things that companies like we do, with our ability to provide them service all around the world when they have employees that could be all around the world. It's a great match. And so we're able to help companies incentivize their workers to take trips. And this is a great segue for us because it's allowing our company to provide the top level quality services that we've always done, but we're giving it to an audience that appreciates it on a much, much higher level. Not to say that a family doesn't appreciate it, or a couple, or a group of friends, but when we start dealing with the reputation of a corporate image, publicly traded companies, Fortune 100 companies, their image is extremely important to them. The PR message that's getting out there about what they're doing in the world, the impact they're having, the way they're offsetting the good and bad, all of that is so important to them. And it's great that our journey through travel has put us in a position to be able to receive corporations that have hundreds of thousands of employees and actually provide them with incentive trips all over the place. And so this is kind of where the travel business has gone over the years. And so we continue to receive people who just want a family vacation, and we facilitate those. But it's great that now we have team members, we're able to integrate into the business. We have new people starting to take on roles where they're getting involved with interacting with customers, finding new customers. Like Santiago mentioned, we have some new trip hosts that are starting to get involved to help us travel when we're not traveling. And that allows us to scale into corporate America, which is a huge focus for us.
Yeah.
We years ago we started getting into some small investments of our own, and just trying to take advantage of our network and resources in Latin America. And so many opportunities come your way when you're not from there. When you're the foreigner, people just come to you with things and offers and opportunities. So it's not that you necessarily have to go out looking for them. They find you. And that put us in front of a lot of opportunities. And we were young, but we were still curious, and we wanted to invest into what we were doing, the region, the culture, the people. So we did. We made small investments, and some of them did better than others. But one of the most interesting one was whenever we did something that went back to earth, it seemed like it was a hit for us. Kind of vibe with our personalities. We're very loving people. We love to serve. We love to do people right. If there's a problem, we'll fix it. And when we started doing initiatives like picking up trash at the beach with tourists, it just really hit home. I mean, it was so special that we ended up having a whole clothing line that was born from picking up trash, creating proceeds so we could donate the money to good philanthropic efforts. And whenever we did things that had to do with planting trees to bring back, damaged tourist zones, it was special for us because we're new in tourism, and we're trying to do something different and make an impact and be leaders in what we do. So these were all things that kind of have been crescendoing and building together and coming together in this perfect formula that's ripe for the picking now for the corporate world, if they take advantage of it, because there's never been something like what we're doing before. So now it's truly, the ball's going to be in the company's hands to figure out how true are they to their cause, how true are they to their public image, how true are they to the value they see in their employees. Do they really care about their employees, or are they replaceable? And that's going to come to light with this program that we've put together.
This program. You guys,
Yeah.
Go ahead, Santi.
No, it's just very no, as I'm listening to Chris, it's like, I'm almost like playing the tape, right? It's an accumulation of experiences and people that we met, and these are something just almost magical has happened, I would say, over the last couple of years, that all these people that we met 20 years ago, right? Everybody started reconnecting. But we all now have the same idea, the same vision, the same plans, the same purpose-driven, visions, I guess. But it's people that we met years ago. Literally, the average is about 20 years ago. And it's just funny how the world goes around, right? And then just everybody started reconnecting. And then, like Chris said, just the whole journey took us to there. And I think, and everybody has a different story, but we all landed in the same place. We took a trip to El Salvador. And that's when we realized that all these people, that's the moment that was like, oh my God, all these people we met 20 years ago. And everybody was just so connected in this, with a new vision,
So you have a house now filled with power players. Everyone's walked their own journey, but you guys are reunited. And basically, part of business, you guys are networking, sharing ideas. What happens now when you get seasoned people under one roof? Like what happens?
It is definitely incredible because, when they say wisdom saves you so much time, and sometimes you thought you had a little problem, you give it to somebody else with experience, and that's a problem? Really? That's not a problem. This is just, So then you learn how to, what do they say? You learn how to love the problem. And then once you love the problem, it stops being a problem, right? And that's usually the philosophy that people have, right? All of our associates, they don't necessarily see it as I hate it. No, I love it. Let me love you so I can see how I can solve you. And that's usually
like a problem child. All they need is a hug.
Yeah, exactly. Very interesting.
Okay, so all right, you gotta love your problems because your problems basically are a reflection of your fears. So if you embrace the problem, it's no longer a fear. It's right? My stepchild. Yeah. But Santiago, Chris, we have now built a network. You build a business that's stood strong even past the pandemic. You guys rekindled some relationships from folks that you guys knew 2 decades ago. What's come to the light now? I know that you guys have merged and done a partnership in which this right here is going to allow you guys to take this business and the world into a whole different investment opportunity. And that is exactly what I want you guys to hit home for us, because I think people, I found out these guys are down to earth. It's no wonder they found this opportunity. All they did was travel, love, struggle, and fix problems. And that this brings you to this new element in which you guys can actually shine that wisdom you're talking about, given all of the hardships, growing pains, but most importantly, the love for business is what pretty much got you guys here. So where are we at here today?
Yeah. So let me tee this up real quick, because this goes back to a time, just to bring it into the fold, when we were the tour operator and we got a call for a couple of investors that needed to explore an investment opportunity. And so we got the job. We needed to go pick them up and show them around for a few days. And because they were high profile clients, we definitely wanted one of us to be involved. I happened to be in the country at that time, so I was in the passenger seat with a driver and a couple of investors in the back. And the entire time, the only thing they did was talk about trees. It was one of the most boring drives of my life. And I couldn't figure out why these investors were so infatuated with trees. And then as I started to get to know them and learn about who they were, a senior engineer in Boeing, someone that does extremely well, private law firm, the spouse, and I started to realize that they really probably made a lot of money and were extremely humble and just excited to learn about a new country, explore the hills of Nicaragua, and talk about their trees. And one of the weirdest things was, at one point they really started to get into their portfolio, and I just kept my mouth shut and listened. And then as they started asking me questions, I responded and got into the investment conversation with them. And that's when we really took a note of their decision to invest into these tropical trees. And at the time, it was more of just a curiosity. It was an interesting story. And I was thrilled to be able to be there courting them around as they talked about their investment. But it was very memorable. We've done so many different trips, but that was special. It was different. And those people were so quality. They weren't flashy. They weren't flaunty. They weren't pretenders. They were the real deal, and they were just cool. Like, I wanted to go visit them. And funny, I did visit them because it was such a unique experience that we became friends. And anyways, fast forward, it was a call to Santiago saying, you know, this is something interesting. I never thought or knew that you could actually invest into trees. And so it was one of those things that was a quick conversation, and it was like, yeah, that would be great. You know, one day, maybe, you know, when everything's in our favor, we'll have it in our portfolio. And who knew at that moment what was going to happen years later? So I'll let you, you know, continue
No,
the
but
story
on
on.
that note, so that same year, bro, we are, I guess, some friends that live in Hawaii. They visit Nicaragua. Some doctor friends of mine. Hey, let's go to Nicaragua. So we go to Nicaragua. And then one of our friends, who was in the insurance business forever, did extremely well in Nicaragua, owned a large insurance company. He's like, hey, why don't you come down and see my farm? You know, let's hang out at the farm. Bring your friends. So I go to his farm. His farm was about almost 2,000 acres. It's a massive farm on the lake. Anyways, we're chit-chatting, and then we're taking a cruise. I mean, we're just showcasing everything. We're seeing everything. And then I see a road of trees. As far as the eye can see. Y esos arbolitos, said in Spanish. What are those little trees? Oh, yeah, that's for my great-grandkids, he said. And I'm like, yeah, you gotta bury the money, man. And when he said that, David, my foot was like, what do you mean you gotta bury the money? I says, yeah, man, you know, working in insurance in Latin America, so I made a lot of money, so I needed to bury the money. Trees will bury the money, and that'll give them enough money. They can do whatever they want. At that moment, he planted about 100 manzanas, about 200 acres of precious tropical trees for his great-grandchildren. That's when I'm like, bro, this is like, my mind just went. I couldn't believe it, right? So then, so it was two different people, two different backgrounds, but they were putting their money into the ground, right? And then we learned, like I said, money does grow on trees. You know, the whole saying, we always say, does money grow on trees? So that actually became a true fact when we saw that. I mean, when we saw that, when I experienced that. So that we stayed with that
desire.
And then, so as we evolve, now we're coming back to the present. One of my really good friends, you know, and the same people involved in Nicaragua, they decided to take on this project for in Guatemala, right? And it was because, you know, one of our associates there, he is a forester, and his job was to protect the Mayan biosphere for the longest time. So they over 30 years ago. So they came along and said, okay, we protect the Mayan biosphere, but he said, well, so what's next? Okay, it's protected, but what do we do now? How do we prevent people from cutting trees, and, you know, how do we revive? So his idea was, well, then let's cultivate them. Let's create these tree farms. And obviously that was a very crazy idea, because typically you don't cultivate tropical hardwoods. It's almost unheard of, right? Unheard of, especially in Guatemala, people aren't doing that. So over the last 25 years, we developed a proof of concept that now became Forest to Fortune. Yeah.
Forest to fortune. You guys seen an individual who not only invested hard in his insurance business, but also put the money on the ground, kind of like that concept. So I want to talk about that. When you seen it, and you seen those trees out in the field in person, you thought to yourself, those trees are assets, and they're only gonna grow every year, and their value is going to go up. And now you started, you have, your ITA Global has partnered up with Forest
to Fortune.
What are we doing now over at Forest to Fortune? What opportunities do we have now?
Because of our previous history catering to investors on a specific opportunity very, very similar to biosphere protection and preservation and reforestation, timberland, we were the perfect company for the task. And it was the same thing, you know, someone's got to coordinate the investor's trip. When someone wants to come out here and see the project, or hug a tree or plant a tree or be involved or do some of the philanthropic things with the community, they need someone to help them with that process. And again, you know, we were the company to step in and fill that void. And it was our moment to take the relationship farther than just being a supplier to the investment opportunity.
Yeah, you know, but just on that note, right before that, because we've seen the project, and when we saw the project evolving in Guatemala, I called the owner and said, "Hey man, we gotta buy some trees for the company." Initially, we thought, let's buy some, just because we want to be ecological, we want to be socially responsible. So if we want to be socially responsible, let's actually do it. So we started buying trees. Literally, that's how we started. We started just as investors, and as the time evolved, then we realized, well, we're the perfect match. So we can, cater to the investors that are coming into Guatemala to see the farms. And then once you're there, everything goes into wow.
It's so interesting how Chris was tuned in and just really focused on your clients that were talking about these trees, right? And just maybe a few months to a couple years later, you guys now have trees in your portfolio.
Yes. Yeah.
It's just crazy how you guys applied what you learned. Not only kind of just, maybe, possibly, but no, you guys actually have trees now.
Literally. Yeah.
Okay.
It didn't seem possible at the time. It just was an interesting concept.
I think it was almost, initially it was hard to grasp the first time you hear it. Then when you hear it and you see it, okay, that makes sense. And then when you see it for the third time, okay, it's time to act, right? And it was interesting because when I would think of trees, it was never, I never thought of trees that way, and I think most of us don't. Obviously, the very high sophisticated investors, a lot of them have timber in their portfolio. Why? Because it's a very strong asset class, right? But if you're not educated into that segment, most people wouldn't even think about it.
So let's invest in some trees, okay? Now, as you guys have this opportunity for folks to buy trees, not only are you guys making that possible, but you guys also offered land and just buy forests by the acres. Can you guys expand on that?
So the tree business, typically it's you buy a lot of them at one time. Typically, the way it has always been done, you spend a few $1 million, and then that's usually how you buy hundreds of acres of timber. What we have done, because technology changed the way we do business, so now anyone can actually purchase trees, starting from one tree at a time. Technology made purchasing trees extremely easy, because now, you don't have to be there to buy a tree like the way we used to before. Now, what we do is you go to an app or you go to the website and you purchase a tree. You click, and you say, I want to buy a tree or I want to buy 10 trees. You can buy them once a month, every quarter, every 6 months, or once a year. It doesn't really matter how, because now you have an application. When you log into your system, you see the species, the age of your tree, and the value of your tree as it grows. Every tree is geolocated and is coded. So when many people have already asked, hey, well, how do I know the same tree is not going to be sold again? Well, so we have a couple of Swiss platforms that manage the inventory of the trees. So once the tree has been selected on the inventory, it can no longer be sold again, right? So it's very easy. But when you go to your application, you have your tree, your code, your species, your value, and every year you see the value going up, which is extremely phenomenal.
Okay, I'm curious. So I love technology. So you said Swiss platforms, and then you said application. So tell me about the technology behind this concept.
The application allows every individual to see the health. Oh, and also one of the applications monitors the biodiversity, so you can see the impact that's being made in the area, right? So within the farm, there is an area that was like a secondary forest, and then there is the cultivated forest, one that will be left there for eternity, and the one that's going to be harvested eventually. So that in itself gives back so much, because what we've done is take degraded land. What used to be a forest, they cut it down, they brought the cows, but now people have no cows and you have no trees. So with our vision now, we are getting degraded land, replanting and bringing back, yeah, we're restoring and we're doing a restoration and reforestation at the same time.
There you go. Okay. So these trees can be purchased at an individual level, businesses and corporations. Are you guys seeing more consumer on one end than the other, or are you guys getting increase from just all levels? What's going on right now?
You know what? We were part of this event in France, in Paris. It's called Change Now, which is the epitome of this, of nature, technology, and everybody that wants to help the planet. There are so many softwares that are trying to figure this out. Everybody's coming up with these technologies to monitor trees, monitor forests. So there, in a big scale, people couldn't believe this was actually possible. Even though it was very high-tech, people, they couldn't, oh my God, you're telling me that I can buy a mahogany tree in Guatemala, but I live in France, and I can monitor that through my application? No, dude, it was mind-blowing. And we're like, yeah, that can actually be done. And Javier, the forester, being there, he's also explaining all these details that they couldn't believe that was possible. Now it's possible. Before, you had to fly in, buy everything, it just was too complicated. So that was being there and seeing everybody that's loving nature being so blown away by this opportunity. It just from that scale, I think a lot of individuals now more than ever will have the opportunity to buy trees individually, which is incredible. And then you have the other area, which is investors that really want to put their money to rest. We're seeing more, the conversations are more on legacy. People that have money, they want to leave a legacy. They want a wealth preservation. So trees happens to be one of the best asset class to do that. And many of the already known multi-billionaires have that as part of their portfolio.
So why do you think, smaller investors haven't really jumped on this opportunity? What do you think? Do you think that you guys will become the bridge and become an educator in the space and show people just how much they can actually double down on hard assets without losing?
Yeah, we have a very strong vision on that, and we feel that vividly because, like you said, most people don't realize you can do that. Even people, like I said, we just saw in France, very involving nature. They didn't know they could do that, but since we have that specific detail, and it's not only that, it's the type of species we're growing to that has a lot of value in the marketplace, right? So you're doing two things. You're helping the community, you're helping the environment, and you're helping economics. So we call it a triple bottom line.
Chris, so with corporations trying to retain high talent employees, right? Because some of these folks that are educated can just be freelancers and not go work for a corporation. Yes. What strategy right now would you say would work well for a corporation to retain that top talent?
Well, it's a really good question because it's very competitive out there. Entrepreneurship is spiking at an all-time high, so everyone's trying to go free and do something for themselves by themselves. It's not easy, so a lot of people, bounce back and forth. So there's always going to be, a market of workforce, right? But the real talented ones, they're finding their way through other means. And I think it's going back to how serious are these companies out there that claim to care. Now's their time to really step up and show it. And with what we're doing and the ability for a company to touch and impact the lives of their employees, this should be front and center, for corporate America. They should be really, really paying attention. And some people claim to, but don't follow through. Some people scratch the surface so that they can claim they're doing something. But, we're really trying to take it deeper and take years of experience and build up and accumulation of resources and knowledge and psychology of how people are and how to really create a social impact, how to create an economical impact, and how to create an impact with the planet. We have decades of experience firsthand with all of that. So, now we're able to really show corporate America how to create corporate culture, that's relevant, that's hip, that's new. People that are older still want to be hip. They want to be new. New always works. So the companies have got to figure that one out. And when they can use travel as an incentive to get people on board to stick around with the company, people like to travel. If I can travel once a year because I do a good job and I can bring my wife with me, hey, I don't have to pay for the vacation once a year with my wife. That's incredible. I want to work for those types of companies. And that's the opportunity companies need to be offering their employees. Mm-hmm. It needs to come from HR. HR needs to care about these employee benefits. And if that corporate culture doesn't exist, there's no better time, there's no better company to create that partnership with than ITA Global.
Yeah, you know what we did is we're calling this program the Impact Incentive Travel Program, right? Because we want companies to bring their employees, we will fly them just the same way they have a great time, they'll have a great vacation, great experience, great hotel. The whole thing is the same. The difference that with an impact incentive experience, we're gonna get them involved, for example, in the forest. They'll be able to spend time with the local communities. They're gonna be able to see that by investing into an impact investment trip, they will be employing hundreds of people for the years to come. So I think that touches not only the company, but it also the employee gets touched. You know, just by being there, understanding, being involved with the community, hugging a tree changes people. So I think all of that put together is going to bring a lot of magic into the workspace.
Companies traditionally offer 401k and they match your contribution. Can companies purchase trees and gift them to their staff members and executives? And is that a possibility?
Yes, man, that is an absolute possibility. I mean, that's something that we've been thinking about that, and it's something that can be easily done. I mean, there's going to be it's going to depend on the company, because companies can actually, part of their incentive experience is going to be gifting each employee a tree. The employee is going to understand the company is not giving them just a tree; they're giving them an asset, right? And through the process of the experience, they're going to be educated. What's going to happen? The employee is going to come back and say, "Wow, you know what? Why don't we just buy 10 more trees?" And that's how it's going to be, right? And then, and also companies can buy trees for themselves, you know, as an asset class as well.
There's so much benefit to this concept. So I understand that, you know, companies, corporations can buy trees, but also they can offset their carbon footprint through your technology and your offer. Tell me how that would work out.
Well, look, in the business of carbon credits, everybody in the world is trying to focus on that. But one of the things that we have learned, obviously we are, what we call it carbon sequestration over the life of the tree. But in order for you to get credits for a forest, you need to have your forest be at a 30-year period. In our case, we're not focusing on the carbon credit, even though we're putting back into the, you know, we're absorbing carbon, but we're focusing more on the timber asset, which is a little bit different than that. But carbon credit will be, or it is already something of the present, and is going to be something humongous in the future, which is going to give companies also the opportunity that, you know, if you want to invest in trees, you have the choice. You can invest in you can create a forest, which is about 10,000 trees, and you can decide, you know, a part of this forest, we're going to have it for preservation. You're never going to cut it. You're going to let it grow. And then we're going to have part of the forest be for cultivation. And that's how you're able to touch both areas, the carbon credit aspect and the monetization of the actual natural asset.
Very nice. Santiago, so any other benefits you could think of?
Yes, David. So by the way, check this out. Through the application, in one of the applications, you are able to monitor not only the carbon sequestration, right? But that means that all the carbon is being absorbed from the environment, but you also see the impact the tree is making in the biodiversity. You're able to see how many animals, how many butterflies, how many insects, how many bees is being developed as the age of the forest. As the forest gets older, then the biodiversity tends to expand. It is just a natural growing asset, right? You plant the tree and you let nature do its course. You let it grow. It doesn't matter what is your, what politics is going on. It doesn't matter the stock market. It doesn't matter cryptocurrency. None of that matters when it's based on nature. Nature has been doing this for millions of years. So if you plant a tree, you take care of it, and then let nature do its course, it just grows. Now, a lot of these trees are being grown in the tropics, which makes it ultra special. Why? Because that is the environment. That is the innate environment of all those trees.
True. All the volcanoes.
So now, volcanic soil, the rain, just, you know, the perfect place for them to grow. So anyways, what happens? Why are trees used as a tool for generational wealth? Because that is the best way to preserve money, right? Because when you plant a forest, you typically are not thinking of cutting it down to cash it out and go buy a car, right? You simply let the forest grow so your great-grandchildren can utilize the funds in the future.
Yes.
It's not a now thing. And I think people don't want to mess with nature. Just let it be. And because what happens when you do, then you don't reap the benefits of it. And as a society, what we've done, we want meat, so we cut the trees. We grow the cattle. But what happens over time? You have no trees, you depleted the soil, and then you have no cattle, so then you find yourself with a degraded land. So what we have done is we take degraded land and revive it by planting secondary forests and then trees for them to grow in their national assets. Now, what we do is we grow mahogany, cedar, and siricote currently in Guatemala, which are high value woods. The next question is like, oh, who's buying these pieces of wood? Who's buying these trees? Companies that make instruments, right? Companies that make guitars, companies that make exotic cars, wood trimmings on the yachts. That's who's buying these trees. The next question is like, well, why are they gonna buy it? Because there are not enough of them. So if there are not enough trees, the demand is super high. And that's what exactly we're building. We're building a future on something that is almost inevitable. What is inevitable? The demand and the growth of the population. It's just the natural course of humanity. So we're just simply gonna be having the supply for the demand. Simple economics. We call it the tree economics. And so anybody, you can be sitting out there in Barcelona, Spain, and you decide you're gonna become eco-conscious. So you go to your application, Force to Fortune, you're gonna go ahead and buy a tree with your phone, and then you're going to get a deed and a management contract, which is that tree is geolocated. Okay, so it means you can check it on satellite, and it's a tracking code, which if you decide to fly from Barcelona next year to Guatemala, you can come and you hug your tree.
Eso es lo que necesitamos
Okay.
en los árboles, que crezca para los lados, como le pasa a las personas que comen mucho y ya no crecen de estatura, pero sí de diámetro. Y esto, aquí está, mira, probá a abrazarlo y vas a ver
Sí.
que ya no podés.
Sí.
Mira.
Wow.
Tiene 65 centímetros de diámetro.
Sí.
Which makes it absolutely spectacular, man. Absolutely spectacular.
Difficult to do that on Wall Street.
Yeah, you cannot do that. So yeah, so trees becomes almost a fascination, right? When you get really into this thing, it's just you always wonder, how come? Why didn't I know better? We just didn't, you know. We were just thinking of, you know what it is though. I think when you are as you're growing, especially if you're growing in a tough environment, two things you gotta focus on: food and shelter. But when you get up to a certain level of maturity, and you've generated enough wealth or enough money, not necessarily wealthy, but you have enough money to sustain your food and shelter and your basic needs, then you start thinking into nature. So that's what happens. People that have a lot of money, now they have the luxury to think about these assets. And that's how they're able to preserve the wealth, right? Because now they have time to think about. But what we have done is new generation, through technology, people can buy trees every week. You can buy a tree a week. Every time you get paid, you can click. The next question is, well, how much is a tree? Well, trees can vary depending on the species, but on average, about $500 a tree. Then what happens? So you let the tree grow, typically up to 18 years, right? And then in 18 years, you sell the tree for about 10 times more. So let's say in that case, it'll be, 10 times, about $50,000 you're gonna get. So what it is that you buy this, they say you buy this tree for your girlfriend, and your girlfriend never does anything. And years down the line, right? Years down the line, come down and like, oh my God, I have a tree in Guatemala. She can sell the tree. She's gonna make $50,000 on that gift. You know, once upon a time, people were selling stars. Maybe they still do, but now you can actually sell a tree, and you can buy a tree. You can own a tree, and you can go hug it, kiss it every month, every spring. And you can see it grow. Now, when the time comes to harvest the tree, you know, you're reaping the benefits of that. So yeah, man, it's really fascinating. It's just very fascinating how nature is very simple. It's actually the simplest business. You plant it and you let it grow.
You know, lots of people make investment choices in, you know, risky things. They're playing the stock market, they're playing cryptocurrencies, oil and gas, and you know, there's no guarantee in any of that. At any given moment, those types of investments could go sideways with any of the swings in the market, the politics, the climate, and that's what's really fascinating about trees as an alternate asset class, because they're just like bulletproof from all of these potential risks.
Yeah, it's
making it a really low risk, high return asset.
Definitely. It's definitely one of the questions, what happens to the fires? Well, a lot of these areas in Central America are very humid, especially like the Mayan biosphere, very humid area. And then you do it because you're developing a forestry project. So the spacing, the cleaning of the brush every time. And then obviously you have forest monitors that will prevent that. So we always guarantee the tree for growth and health. So if you buy a tree today and you get sick 3 years down the line, we are going to replace it for you. So we're guaranteeing it for growth and health. Why can we do that? Because over the last 25 years, through the proof of concept and understanding the tree behavior, we know how to take care of them. We know how to cure them. We know how to treat them. But if things go wrong, we'll just give you a new tree. And that's as simple as that. Very simple. Yeah, man. Fascinating shit.
Who would have thought when we were first starting in technology, dial-up internet, going to Nicaragua for the first time, that we would be talking about, corporate trips around the world and investments in trees.
Yeah, and when it comes down to that, is like, lately as we make that transition, our company has always focused. We're really heart driven. We love everything we do. We really genuinely love what we do. But when it came down to connecting travel and nature, it was like an explosion of things, right? It's like a magic happens. Why? Because now we're helping companies that want to do an incentive trip, right? We're going to call it an impact incentive experience. We're going to take them and their employees to have a good time, right? They're going to have great meals, great experiences, beautiful hotels, the whole thing, cultural experiences. But what we're doing, we're creating an impact. Why? Because they're going to navigate amongst the forest with the natives, right? All the native communities of Guatemala in this case. And they're going to connect. They're going to learn about the culture, the people, the food, the music, and then they will participate in the restoration process of this. So they'll understand that by growing trees, they're making an impact in creating employment for the next 18 years, which is a long term. So traveling will become more than just the trip. It becomes it's almost like a legacy. The company is going and putting a seed that's going to create a legacy. Why? Because if the company gives the employee, right, they give the employee a tree as a gift, that employee now has a growing asset. They can always go back next summer and they can buy now more trees for themselves and their family. So then the cycle continues. Well, let me tell you something. What's interesting. So we got invited to participate in this project in one of the Central American countries. They have focused a lot in crypto. So we went and we understood that they have been highly degraded. They have a highly degraded forest. Right over the last century, they've taken out, I don't know, they have over 800,000 acres of degraded land. So what is the what is the solution? The solution is very simple. Everybody understands that in order to create a green economy, we need to restore through secondary forest and cultivation. And in this case, the plan would be to grow 16 million trees over the next 10 years. What does that really mean in economic terms? I mean, the average price of a tree right now is about, I'm sure it's about $9,000 plus. Simple math, 16 million times 9,000 is $144 billion. That is an industry that for the next 18 years is going to create jobs for the entire generation. It's going to create a new industry, which will be the timber industry. That industry from foresters, agronomists, precision agriculture, technology, everything will be involved that creates all these different jobs for the next century. It's just really fascinating. So if they really take it like that, what's going to happen that if you come to the US and you're working really hard and then you're going to go to your application, you're going to say, okay, this is my country. I'm going to buy a tree. Now that I got paid this Friday, I'm going to buy my tree. And then you're saving with trees. So what happens when you go back home 18 years from now, you're going to pull out your green ATM and you're going to cash it out. That's why we love trees. The vision for ITA Global, as of now, it is to really dominate the space of travel in a very unique way by creating impact incentive experiences,
Yes.
right? Why are we going to do that, man? Because we understand that there's so much value in the forest space that we're going to be able to educate organizations to take their employees to that level.
Yeah, it's really about bringing value, and you can bring perceived value, you can bring value like surface level, but when you can bring value that extends into someone's future, it impacts their future family, their future finances. That's a really major impact. And so, I mean, this is what we're doing, man. We're opening up the door on a much deeper level. We're giving the employee-employer relationship a way better possibility to thrive, and for that to be really healthy and strong, it creates good work culture, like we always talk about. It helps companies retain talent. It helps them recruit new talent. So these are just so many benefits in this. I mean,
sorry, but I was gonna say, as you know, I mean, companies' goals are now to, they gotta really participate in conserving, right? In
Yeah.
social responsibility
big time.
became now a bigger why they gotta do this. So social and corporate responsibility and the impact incentive experiences meets all that criteria.
Yeah, one of the things when we go to a lot of these trade shows internationally and we see who's been at this world of incentive corporate travel, one thing we see in common is, there's a lot of people that are doing things the same way they've been doing them for many years. They have a system that works really well. They have great relationships, but they kind of fell asleep behind the wheel. They might be losing a little spark, a little edge. They might be looking for a way out. They've been in the industry for a long time. And so this, I think, is a real big reason why we know that we can deliver in this space, because we see the industry was created to serve corporate markets, and corporate markets have been doing this for a long time. And it's kind of gotten dull, and it's kind of dying out. Companies are pulling their budgets back, not spending as much money on it, because it's not having an impact, right? So we come in and create that impact component that's been missing and dying out. That's the flame that's dying out, and we're just giving it new fire. So with that, there's going to be this uprise in this whole incentive world. And if you're just doing an incentive trip to take a beach vacation and nothing more, I mean, that no longer is cutting it. We're trying to take that message farther.
And as you know, to take it a step back, I mean, incentive travel was created to exactly that, to incentivize the employee, right? Top performers.
Yeah.
And initially you started with that, people before you got incentivized by getting a check, and then you were always busy. You never left the office. You got your bonus. They made a direct deposit. Your wife used it up.
Work.
You had no idea that it was even there, and you never left. So then that's why it started taking top performers. They started taking them on vacations.
Yep.
And then that has become a big trend. It's still a big trend. But now imagine we take a top performer on a vacation with their spouse that has an impact in society and environment and economics. So all that together becomes extremely valuable. Now, if you are a top performer, your mind always goes the next level.
Yes.
And you will simply understand that by doing this, by your organization investing into an impact incentive experience, you're going to be helping the community at a huge level. And then what happens? You come back home feeling relief. You're feeling much better. You're feeling relaxed. You're feeling that you gave back.
Yes.
Right? You have the satisfaction that you gave back. So that's some of the, as human beings, even though we have been in technology and we are going way beyond, I think the human touch is always necessary. And when people can touch nature and humanity at the same time, I think it's a win-win formula.
And they can get that on a 3 to 5 day trip. And, we'd always hear back in the day, companies going to Costa Rica for corporate retreats. We'd hear about people going to Mexico, Cabo, Cancun, right? And I think people felt comfortable to those destinations that were close by. Now, bringing ITA Global's almost 15-year network globally as a footprint, these companies can now send people in large groups or small groups to multiple destinations. So I think it's time for the companies to recognize how they can scale their incentive programs. It doesn't have to be a reoccurring trip every year to Cancun or every year to Costa Rica, where even that initiative becomes dull. This is the initiative that a company can take that keeps on changing. It keeps on being dynamic. It keeps on being relative. So the relativity of what we're doing, hello, corporate America, wake up.
But now that you say that, you know what's crazy? Now that you say that, I mean, companies can take somebody from California, let's say we take them to Egypt, but if it's an impact incentive experience, they can still benefit the environment. Why? Because we're still planting trees and gifting trees to those employees if it's an impact incentive travel, right? So they don't have to go to the destination where the trees are. Why? That's why technology has changed the way we do everything.
Changed everything.
Because the employees say, okay, everybody, today is the last day of the event. Everybody look at your phone. Oh my God, you got a tree. And then you can log into your application. You can see the tree that you now own in Central America, where you're having a hell of a good time out there looking at the pyramids of Egypt.
Most companies don't just give away money, but this is their time and their mechanism to do that in a way that works economically. We're able to privatize these forests for a company. I mean, walking into Mark Zuckerberg, hey Zuck, let's go to the forest, bro. I want to go have a barbecue this weekend. Let's go to the Meta Forest. This is incredible that companies can put their name on a forest. Imagine what they can do with that in the future.
Mm-hmm.
Imagine what they can do with that in the immediate moment when they start this journey. They can immediately involve everybody that they employ. They can involve all the families of the people they employ. Or they can keep it all to themselves, or they want to be greedy bastards and they can make all the money. It doesn't really matter, but the opportunities there are really wild.
Yeah, you're right. I mean, so Google can have a Google Forest.
They can ride their
American
multicolored
Express.
bikes on trails through the forest
Yeah.
and give their employees a chance to disconnect from the world of concrete and focus and goals and hours and politics. There's so much of that's great. It's great structure, but every now and then we got to unplug from the matrix. We got to disconnect
And then we'll
reconnect.
Google has a very strong, what do they call it? Corporate social responsibility.
Yes.
So, I mean, we use Google as an example because if they were to invest into a forest, right? They invest into a 10,000 tree forest. That is legacy for Google, and they can use those trees as a way to incentivize their top performers.
Absolutely.
Instead of giving you a share, I'm going to give you a tree or a bunch of trees because you have done phenomenally well. What's going to happen when the employee leaves? The employee takes the trees on their application, and then 18 years down the line, they can cash them out. I mean, think about it.
And they can always thank Google.
Yeah, so I mean, it's really that simple. Simplicity in nature. Keep it simple.
Yeah, Silicon Valley, we're coming for you. So you need this, whether you realize it yet or not. We're coming for you, and we're coming for you from the heart. This is for the people, for the planet, and for the profit. We got your pocketbook covered as well, but we're definitely coming for you because we know we can deliver an experience that's one of a kind. We know that the impact it's going to have on your people is going to be out of this world. They're going to be talking about it around the water cooler. They're going to be buzzing about it on social media. Isn't that the kind of culture and the results that you want? So this is our chance to dance and get into some forestry conversations, right?
Mm-hmm. I am extremely confident that through this initiative with ITA Global and Force to Fortune, I'm confident that we are going to be a key player in the future of impact incentive travel, because we understand it from the ground up. We understand what it is to give back. We absolutely understand what it is to make an impact in a society, in a community, the way we did with the Acachimba back in Nicaragua, right?
Absolutely.
How we were doing all this, cleaning up the rivers and reforesting like the lagoons. I mean, we saw it firsthand, but now taking this to a corporate level, I mean, this is gonna be incredible. So if you are a DMC and if you're looking for something different, and if you want to do a collaboration, you want to bring your clients to Latin America, or actually it doesn't really matter. Once you connect with us, there's going to be a lot of synergy, and all the benefits are for you as an organization and for your client who's going to benefit from all this. So just letting you know, ITA Global is definitely going to lead the way.
Yeah, and the other agencies that are out there, we not only want to work with you, but we're willing to play this game multiple ways. If there's an opportunity for us to help you out and come under your wing to provide a service to you, our team is here to collaborate with you. If you can be of service to our organization in some part of the world, we're happy to do that collaboration as well. But what's exclusive and what can't be replicated in other areas is our impact incentive program, the way we have it designed. So you can confidently team with ITA Global to sell unique services to your clients. If you have a book of corporate clients and they're accustomed to taking incentive trips, but they're trying to justify, is it worth it? Is there an ROI? Is it worth the spend from the HR budget? These questions can easily be answered with a yes when we're tying in the impact situation. So this is the time for these two different roads to come together.
Definitely, man. So
hey, it's going to be a good 2025. I mean, it's just starting and we're barely kicking off the campaign. We're dripping it out to corporate clients, people that we've established as pioneers, people that are ahead of their competitors in their industry when it comes to green initiatives, when it comes to doing things for the people, for the planet. And so anybody who's there, kind of a visionaire in that aspect, or anyone that's trying to launch a green initiative or a green project, this is for you. This is your time to shine. And as soon as we're able to integrate what we've done over the last 2 decades with what you've done over the last lifetime, there's going to be some magic in your corporate atmosphere.
people ask, how do you compare it to stocks? And actually we can't. It's not comparable because it's a very different asset class. Okay? We're banking on nature. But the biggest difference is that if you buy a stock, things go typically up or down. If you get really lucky, you're gonna make a lot of money in it. But if you want a secure asset that gives you, the returns are 10 times, right? You simply bank on nature. And by doing that, you invest in timber, you invest in trees of high grade value in the marketplace. And that's exactly why this is a safer bet. Why should you invest in nature? Biggest thing, if you invest in nature, you're going to invest in specifically in this class, which is timber class, the trees. Comparing to the stock market has it fluctuates, right?
A lot of volatility.
A lot of
Always
volatility. Up and down. But trees,
Let's
they only
go down.
know what to do one thing. They just know how to grow. So if you think about it, the trees are going down by rooting, and they're going up.
They're getting rooted, just like we should be rooted in our values, our beliefs, and our investments. So we should be following these trees as an example.
Yeah, so when it comes down to this, I've said this multiple times. When you really think about the investments in nature, it's very simple. You plant a tree, you take care of it, and typically you only have to take care of it for the first 3 to 4 years. And then you let nature do its work, and then you let it grow.
You know, one of the things that I think holds people back from grasping what we're doing is they're probably thinking that you and I are out there farming. Maybe some people don't, but I think there's a lot of people who might actually think that, we're on a day-to-day basis, on the agricultural side of the business. And while we have participated in doing that, we've planted trees before, that's not our role here. We play a role as a silent investor, basically because we're investing into the tree and we're letting the agriculture team of the farm take care of the health and secure the asset and guarantee the asset, like something the stock market could never do, something many investments can never do. And when it comes time to cultivate and harvest that wood, we don't have to go down and fire up the chainsaw. We don't have to find the buyer. We're not making calls to see who's gonna, buy this tree. And that's what I think people don't get. I think people are expecting that they're gonna have to deal with all that.
Yeah.
And even though the opportunity walks someone through the course and explains all of this, people still just come to their conclusions. You know, they have these visual ideas of what it is, and it's probably completely different than what people are thinking.
You know, one of the things that we have done, and one of the most educational trips that you can take, is do an impact investment discovery trip. Typically, this trip is about 4 days, 3 nights, and you fly into Petén, Flores, Guatemala, and you actually get to meet the entire process of the tree, from planting to growing to harvesting, and then transformation. So you get to see that within that trip. That way, all these questions get answered during that experience. Not only, and then most importantly, you get to see actually what you're investing in. It's a valuable trip to make, because why, you're visiting your investments at this point. And if you're unsure, you're visiting the area you plan to invest. So you actually get to see the physical asset.
A little research and development.
Super valuable, yeah. Many of us may think, okay, if I buy a tree now, if I bought 100 trees, and I need the money 7 years from now. Well, through the application, which we call it the marketplace, you are able to sell your trees to other investors. You're able to liquidate that, which makes it completely, it changes the game in the timber business. So you're able to liquidate, you're able to trade. So you simply go to the application, say, I want to sell 10 of my 100 trees, and you put them into the marketplace. Another investor is going to say, oh my God, those trees are 7 years old. Let me go ahead and buy them from you. Why would they buy a 7-year-old tree from you? Because they're buying time. They don't have to wait 7 years. They're buying time. But at 7 years, you already made your money back. You probably triple your money or quadruple your money. That investor, the new person who buys your new tree, simply waits until maturity or whenever they want it. But the craziest thing is just done through a digital contract. It's a smart contract that gets exchanged in the blockchain. And then you exchange your trees, you get your money, they get their trees, and then they harvest the trees in the future.
So I don't follow all the blockchain yet. It's going over my head. And I'm speaking on behalf of probably a lot of people out there that aren't able to quite grab onto what all of that means. You're telling me that I can put my money into a tree. I don't have to deal with it. I don't have to care for it, but I get all the benefits of it.
Absolutely.
I get the money. I get the pride and joy to claim it as my tree. If I want to go down there and carve my initials in the tree trunk, you know, no one's going to tell me I can't because it's my tree. So, you know, I mean, if I have all that benefit, you know, why do you think more people aren't dumping into the tree as an asset class?
It's simply because they need to be educated. Just like us, you know, for us, it was a surprise when we first learned that trees could actually make you money. And
It took us a long time. I mean,
it took us a long time.
to click. It made sense on the surface, but to really understand the strategy.
It took us a long time to click, exactly. But as we now understand, people that want to preserve wealth, they put it in areas like timber,
Yep.
into forest. Why? Because, like I said earlier, if you plant a tree, you're not gonna want to go cut it on Sunday, or next week, or next year, or next summer. You're gonna have to wait for the tree to grow. That's one way to control human nature. Let nature do work.
Our need for overconsumption. Yes.
Exactly. Oh, look, man, traditional real estate is definitely a great space to monetize, but this is actually a real estate play, because when you buy 100 trees, for example, you buy your trees, and then they grow in value. They're gaining equity, but you don't have to worry about the rent, the maintenance, the management, the electricity, and the return. It's, you know, 10 times the amount invested. So it's a very different. It's a real estate play in the sense that you're actually getting a physical asset, but you don't have to worry about all the other stuff. But ironically, there are benefits into this, right? There are tax benefits that you can actually save in your taxes the year you invest. There are different IRS codes in the US that allow you to do that.
And when you buy a tree, doesn't it work just like a car or any other type of asset where I have a bill of sale that says I actually own this asset?
Yeah, exactly. You get a bill of sale, and you get your management contract, which is, you know, for the life of the tree. So
and that's what guarantees me that if some crazy thing happens, I'm protected.
Correct. You're protected, and not only that, I mean, you have the ability to to liquidate that asset at any time, at any given time, if you feel like it, right? If you feel the need to do so.
So most people think in order to cash out, you got to cut it. You got to cut the tree down. But what you're saying is that's not the case.
Correct. Now we've been able to change that in a very easy way, just through technology. In a digital contract, you make the exchange, you get the money, they get the new digital contract, which is equivalent to a tree, and they can harvest the tree in the future and they make their money. So everybody, it's a win-win thing. It's a very simple. This is, back in the day, it didn't work that way. This is new, and that's probably why a lot of people don't know about it, because typically when you're investing in forests, you gotta invest in the millions of dollars at a time.
So one question that I get asked a lot is, if this is an asset, does it work like other assets? Can I actually go down to a bank, show my bill of sale, show my application, and say I got $50K in timber, and you know what, I want to use it as collateral for a loan to do a repair on my bathroom this summer. I want to trick my home out.
Absolutely, that is a great question. And if there are banks that actually work with alternative assets, they will definitely send the tree business. In the U.S., that's actually a common practice. There are many people that own forests in the U.S. In California, in the Midwest. For example, Virginia is one of the states that actually has a huge economy based on timber. I believe they generate about $21 billion in timber per year.
Wow.
So if you travel to Virginia and you're going through and you see the forest, this is a cultivation because they're in perfect order.
Yes, versus a wild forest.
A wild forest that all the trees
dense.
grow. One of the biggest things that as a generation we now have in our hands, and once again, because of technology, right? I mean, many of us tend to invest within our immediate area, our zip code. Maybe we'll invest a little bit out of state or on the other side of the country, but investing internationally is not something that is that common. Now, into the space of timber, I mean, this is a natural thing. You would invest internationally. Why? Because just think of the wine countries around the world, right? Bordeaux, you have Napa. Specific grapes are grown in those areas. So specific trees such as mahogany, siricote, cedar, and other tropical species only grow in the tropics. But because of technology, you're here in Hacienda Heights or in La Puente or somewhere in Texas, and you can buy a tree in the tropics. So you become an international investor automatically. And because of technology, once again, you log into your application and you can see what your tree is doing for you. The behavior, the biodiversity, the growth, everything that's happening around the farm. So it's a fascinating thing that you can now do. It's as simple as buying anything on TikTok, but in this case, you're buying something for your future, for your family. Tú viviendo aquí en Estados Unidos, en España o en alguna otra parte del mundo. Entonces, por medio de la tecnología y por medio de nuestra aplicación, tú puedes entrar, puedes invertir en uno de estos activos y puedes monitorear los activos por medio de la aplicación. O puedes visitar los sitios de Centroamérica donde están creciendo tus árboles, porque tienen las coordenadas de GPS, están etiquetados, entonces tú sabes muy bien exactamente dónde está tu árbol y cuál es tu árbol. Y esos son inversiones a futuro con unos retornos enormes. Así que con esta generación es un gran consejo que les doy: inviertan en activos naturales. Bueno, una de las cosas más importantes después de escuchar este tipo de cosas es tratar de investigar. Entonces, ¿por qué no nos visitas en nuestra página web itaglobal.com, o te puedes meter también para aprender acerca de los activos naturales en forest2fortune.com, donde vas a poder entender, aprender. Ahí tenemos videos, artículos y toda la información necesaria para que puedas aprender. O también mándanos sus mensajes en nuestros medios sociales @itaglobaltravel, donde nos podrás contactar y aprender un poco más acerca de estos proyectos.
If you're a traveler, make sure you hit us up on itaglobal.com and use our quote my trip button. Our team is standing by to put together a fast quote for you so you can figure out where your next trip is, rally your friends, get your people together, because when you have a group experience with us, you're not going to want to travel any other way.
Also, check out our blog. Our blog is extremely informative with the different things that are coming up in different countries. and specifically in the timber asset space.
If you can count to 1, 2, 3, you can do A, B, C. And you can be in the tree business with you and me. So get your ass together and follow along.
And cut. Good job, gentlemen.